From Sunset Beach, Hawaii, weighing 267 pounds, the magnificent Muraco.
Why is it they call him magnificent?
The man who lifts condominiums off his chest.
Anything that's explosive, anything that's exciting, Prince of Darkness, Master of Destruction, perpetrator of violence. Get ready! I'm gonna burn this place down!
Hello and welcome to the third episode of Don Muraco's Magnificent Podcast. I'm James. You can follow the show at Twitter at Don Muraco Pod and on YouTube, Don Muraco's Magnificent Podcast. But for now, let's throw it to the man himself, the beach bum, the magnificent one, Don Muraco. How's it going?
Good day, James. How you doing?
Good day. Good day indeed.
How's everybody? Good day.
I made my...
Australia. I spend all my time down under. That's as close as I get to I get the wharfies and the good days.
The vest as well today. Gotta love the vest because it matches the podcast thingy, and it's so Don. It's unbelievable.
It's too hot to have a real shirt on. It's summertime here, and it's going.
And the tourists around as well.
Yeah.
Do you find when like tourists are hanging around, you get? I mean, obviously in that shirt you get noticed whether you're a wrestler or not. But like, do you find that like everyone like sort of gravitates towards you and knows who you are?
No.
Nobody
knows. Yeah, no. They're concerned. There's a big ocean out here. So they're looking at turtles. They're that's one of the major problems for the people that have lived here. That turtle. They got Mauna Kea is the proper name of it, but it's become Turtle Beach over the last 15, 20 years, where they stop and walk across. It's the main thoroughfare. Through here also, just there's a traffic jam. And people, if you lived here before 20 years ago, you'd have to drive to talk to your neighbor. There was nobody, well, that longer than that. But if you're back here, in the North Shore from years, a long time ago, when there was just no one here, and you get spoiled,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't imagine too many people can afford houses there. I mean, like the average price is like $1 million for like nothing almost.
Word has it they're paying over 30 to 50% over the asking price.
Jesus.
People are out just to buy land and I guess get out of China or get out of California or get out of where places they don't want to be.
Yeah, so it's not going to be like Costa Rica or anywhere where they're going to like severely limit the amount of like houses that can be built.
I know a couple of friends have moved to Costa Rica so far, and I would never trust a third world country.
No,
personally, unless it was a Commonwealth, New England. I mean, New Zealand, Australia, one of those places, but Thailand, or Singapore. New Guinea or someplace like that, Philippines, their customs are so apart from ours, Man,
Thailand. I went there 2 days. I was basically a layover. I went to Bangkok for a day. Apart from the fact that I hated Bangkok, it's like the worst city in the world because like there were like lines of hookers either side, and I was attached at the time. I wasn't interested, and they're like grabbing at me and everything. And anyway, that wasn't the point. I forget what the point was. Oh yeah, if you do anything, the police will arrest you and they will throw you in prison, and that's just like that terrifies me.
Horrible prisons too.
Yeah, just the worst, the absolute worst prisons in the entire world, and that's what scares me about
that movie. There was that movie a long time ago, Midnight Express. I forget. It was the guy in the Turkish prison for smuggling hash with his girlfriend.
Yeah, Midnight Express.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So I'll sort of move on from Turkish prisons and go straight on to instead. Well, today we're doing the Ultimate Warrior, and but before we move on to the Ultimate Warrior, I know you are more prepared for the Bob Backlund one that we're doing next week. But I thought to ask you about Don Canoodle or Don Canoodle, however you pronounce it. Passed away about a week or so ago, and I was wondering how much interaction, if any, you had with Don.
I had some. We weren't close friends. I don't even know if we were friends. We were acquaintances. I respected the man. He was around. He was Slaughter's partner for a while, and he came up. I don't know what happened. And he was in New York for a while, and I think I was gone, and he was gone. Kind of. I was happy. He was good. He was a good hand, good worker. Filled in terrifically for Slaughter Sparta as a I think he was a private or something, it just went on real easy. I was happy though. I saw his picture later before after he'd retired. He was chubby and had a big smile on, and he was a sheriff, worked for the sheriff's department and stuff. So that I'm glad that he moved on from the autographs, chasing scenes, and the hanging on to wrestling and stuff. That he actually moved on in his life, and found happiness someplace else.
I was actually going to ask you, because he had a very brief run in like 1983 in the WWF and then just left again. I didn't even know that until I read up on the man.
Yeah, he spent most of his time, and then he spent all of his time in the South. So he never. I don't know. I know he's around Carolinas and Charlotte. So he was probably around a lot of those Tennessee, Buddy Fuller promotions, Tennessee, what you might call it,
Alabama,
Pensacola, a lot of those areas there. Instead, stayed close to home. Probably why the transition to deputy sheriff was easy for him, because he was in his neighborhood.
Yeah, I like how he put on a load of weight and turned into J.W. Pepper from Live and Let Die. It sounds like.
I was happy though. He wasn't he wasn't chasing down CD promoters trying to get his trans paid.
I've got to ask this, right, and this is just apropos, just from nothing, but because you worked with him. Jim Nelson. Have you got any Jim Nelson memories? Because he was Boris Zukov, wasn't he, in the late 80s in WWF?
Oh yeah. He was Nikolai's partner for a while. He came in. He was a good hand. He's turned me off for a while. He's a religious zealot, and always the Bible studies, and that relates everything to that. And that's what he's become. He's a truck. I think he's driving a truck now, or was. He's a bit younger than I am, maybe 5 to 10 years. So I don't know if he's still going or retired. I haven't heard of him or seen him for a while.
Have you have you ever seen a larger head on a man?
No.
Right, so then, going away from Jim Nelson, and we're going to do the main event, and I suppose it's the main event. It's like the lion's share of the podcast, I suppose, and it's the Ultimate Warrior. Now, we both watched both documentaries that happened, the A&E one, the Dark Side of the Ring one. Which of the ones of the two did you prefer?
I thought together they worked pretty well. I don't think there's any celebration in either one of them, really, was there? I mean, it was pretty much that he wasn't able to work, and he wasn't, had no talent, and then the interviews are off. And he did when he came in. I was there when he first came in before he started getting the big push, and he was a little off the wall, and his work was suspect. But like I said, I posted. I said, when you bought a ticket to see Ultimate Warrior, you weren't going to see Jack Briscoe or somebody like that. Dory Funk. A wrestling. Expert. He's the guy that came running into the ring, running back and forth, gave a bunch of guys a bunch of stiff clotheslines, shook the ropes, and went running back out the parts unknown. And that's so. And he didn't really disappoint. I think he had a decent match with Savage, I think, at one time, and was if he let you lead him, you could get somewhere, but usually wasn't the case. He probably gets so pumped up into his own warrior thing, because that grew. That grew after I left in '88 and into the '90s. And that persona, you can see just growing in him. I guess he just thought he was the warrior.
If we take it back a bit then, so both documentaries bring up that obviously he was a bodybuilder. He was a bodybuilder before he went into wrestling, and he was picked by man, the guy's head, the guy's name's the little guy who's out in California, and he came up with a couple of pairs of bodybuilders and sent press kits out and everything. The question is though, were you ever interested in the bodybuilding scene? Because it was like really big in the 80s. Did you have any interest in like following the magazines or following the big stars at the time?
Well, I looked at, I followed it naturally, looked at the magazines and stuff, but no, I'm not really, I took training techniques and stuff, I was wrapped in the pro wrestling, gig. It wasn't, there's a lot of extra work for bodybuilding that you really can't, the diet, the eating and the training and the rest, you can't, the training's hard enough on the road, but you couldn't incorporate a diet. Well, you can, but you eventually are going to drive yourself nuts or sick or something.
Is bodybuilding a sport?
Oh God, I guess it depends who you ask. I suppose they train. They train incredibly hard. The Ronnie Coleman, the guy from Detroit, I think he was at Serb. He's just, I don't know how. I haven't seen any bodybuilding magazines lately in a couple of years. But I used to look at him at the gate. Somebody'd leave him in the gate when I was clerking. We were accepting or releasing containers, and Ronnie. So those guys, well, even before that, they've just gotten so thick and so roided out. That they put a lot of work in. They're hard. They put a lot of work, a lot of time in it. They a lot of money. Their diet is precise. They have to take a lot of supplements, and obviously to go on to that high level, you got to do some roids, more than some. You got to do them all.
So he obviously starts off in. Oh, do you know what? I didn't even write this down. I'm going to feel really stupid now. I'm supposed to be. I'm not the expert, but he starts out in the southern states. I know he was in Oklahoma for a bit. I think he was actually in Memphis. That's where he first started. You were obviously on the road in the WWF at this time, 367 days out of a year of 365. You were never having any time. But when was the first time that the Ultimate Warrior or Jim Hellwig ever came on your radar?
When he came in to start doing TV, he came in.
So you'd never heard of him beforehand then? You never heard of the name?
No. No. Dingo Warrior. He came as a Dingo Warrior and with the paint, and that was it. Naturally he's impressive. 275-pound guys, all ripped, and with the paint and the tassels, and he made it. At that time, it was really transitioning. Wrestling was transitioning as such to, guys were having outfits, Macho Man, and these guys, they were having uniforms or, a certain type with the merchandising. Along hand in hand with the merchandising, they were getting, different, certain types. I was wearing only light blue, baby blue pants and had this tie-dye thing going because of they paired me with Billy Graham. And that was my uniform. I mean, don't show up, don't come to work with black tights and a jacket. That's it. This became me. And it was kind of weird for myself because I hadn't been pigeonholed into such a product where, guys like Ric Flair and other guys spend thousands of dollars on capes and robes and stuff. And, which they use, revolving.
Yeah. Did you ever hear of Honky Tonk Man's theory about baby blue trunks? Because it seemed that so many in the WWF wore baby blue trunks or were sort of forced to wear them just before they were let go. So there was you, Greg Valentine, Dino Bravo, a couple of other people. Hercules. Is there anything to that?
It's a good theory. I don't know if you could prove it, and just with the names you go through, certainly certainly fit, but true or false, Oh, Honky, he's got a lot of theories, but whether it's true or not, yeah, just coincidental. I don't know, maybe.
I'll ask this then. Just before Ultimate Warrior turned up in WWF, he was in Dallas and he was managed by Gary Hart. Any
Yeah,
memories of Gary Hart? Did you ever work too many territories with him?
yeah. I was in Tampa with him when I first went to Tampa. He was I was a baby. He was the heel manager, and he was yeah, a great guy, intelligent. Had his own little. Came from the Jim Barnett, Mark Lewin. He'd spent a lot of time with Mark Lewin from Detroit, and all that stuff. He had kind of like a street, his own type of street jive, good jive going. He was a cool guy, smart, around the business and everything else. Unfortunately, he got some kind of illness that took his life early.
Yeah, it was really quick. I don't even think he was ill. I think he just went. I think he
Yeah,
just dropped.
yeah.
Yeah. Did he ever have the book in any promotion while you were wrestling?
Not when I was working there. I'm sure he always had input. Dallas, he may have with Fritz. He may have had the book in Dallas, and maybe been in the office with Watts or somebody around there. I don't really know of his movie. I was with him in Tampa, and he left somewhere, and it wasn't long after that he passed. So I hadn't, most of his previous work. I just came and I just learned of after,
No, I think he
after
died about
meeting him.
2000, 2008, 2009, something like that.
Was it that late? I thought I
Yeah.
heard he'd gone long before that.
No,
Well, maybe
definitely. No, definitely. I saw a video interview in the late 2000s. So yeah, he lived that long, and I think he still had a razor blade in his pocket.
yeah. Well, he disappeared. He disappeared soon after he left Florida. He went around and went to Dallas, and then I don't notice
I
him.
think
I don't
he
remember
was in
him.
WCW for like 1991, and then maybe Dallas again, and then yeah, pretty much disappeared. Well, I'll move on from Gary, and I will ask you, when Ultimate Warrior came in, Jim Ross said he has never seen a worse wrestler in his entire life. He's never met or seen a worse one his entire life when he was signed. Do you remember his first match in WWF? And was it the kind of thing that like the veterans would look at the new guys coming in and evaluate them behind the scenes and trade notes on them or just have a laugh at their expense?
I don't know that I watched. I don't know. I don't know that I followed him when he first came. He was he hung around the Bulldogs a lot, and Bulldogs and Jimmy Powers, and then I was those were close friends of mine on the road as well. So I was around him a bit. Um, his work, a few times his work, watch his match. I remember Dino Bravo and I, we were training partners on the road and stuff. Dino Bravo was working with him one time. I guess he nailed Dino 3 or 4 times, good ones. Dino came on, geez, this is unacceptable. I thought there was going to be a fight, but he just let it slide, But yeah, he would run around, in out of control. You're against a good mind. I never had to. I never. I was by the time he came in, I was a baby face. Had gone to a baby face, so I never had the privilege of working with him. I think we were tag partners. Somebody wrote I saw the other day where we were tag partners in the Garden against Bundy and Butch Reed. And I don't know, came in, I was giggling or something. But he was he'd be easy as a tag partner. Just keep him on the thing on the apron, go in and get a good sell going, and let him do his stuff, and then tag and go home. Wasn't a secret formula to that.
Yeah, I spoke to Steve Lombardi maybe a couple of weeks ago, and he said he knocked me out legitimately twice. Just how does that even possibly happen? Like with just clotheslines, can't you just do it there? I don't understand. I
Well,
don't understand.
it's just that when Dino came out of the ring that one night, he got, he was, you know, and he's going, Dino been around. Dino was no slouch. Hey, he'd been around Montreal and was a good heel, been around all over the place. he wasn't used to getting beat up like that either. So yeah, I remember him saying this is unacceptable. Well, I don't doubt, I don't doubt. Steve got knocked out a couple times by him.
Do
He
you think?
was
Oh, sorry.
out of control. I don't know. These guys get in. I suppose the business was turning then. It was changing. Then the guys, and these are the guys that I don't know that I saw, and guys that were coming in with attitudes and different mindsets of when I started. Because when I was young, the older guys would deal with you. But by that time with McMahon, everybody was kind of on par except for Hulk, or maybe somebody else. It was probably a changing period or a big changing characters like that, to get away with what they got away with in wrestling was pretty. Have to be scripted. You got to be. You can't walk into Bill Watts' territory as in the middle of a Louisiana a New Orleans show, and nobody knows who you are, and just start running around and clotheslining everybody and shaking the rope, and nobody having any time to have any type of continuity, unless it was you knew what was going on, but just to be doing that is kind of insane.
Give us an example of, let's say, Ultimate Warrior comes into Mid-South in 1973. Not that you were there, but Mid-South in 1973, he acts up, hits a couple of people in the nose. How would that be dealt with?
Back then, somebody would grab him, take him down in the middle of the ring, and hold him there. Some little guy, Johnny Walker, Mr. Wrestling 2, or somebody guy, some old bony scrawny guy, Joe Scarpello, Danny Hodge, some old guy that looked like he couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag. Would take him down in the middle ring and hold him there for 10, 20 minutes. That's the way they would do it back. Those are the kind of guys that were, that you were. You'd be, you couldn't move. If you didn't pass out before they hooked you, or break your arm or put you to sleep.
Yeah. Would they do anything in the backstage or in the bar or in the hotel? Would they just like rib you mercilessly, or would they like more ignore you?
Probably, yeah. I imagine so. Yeah. It's you probably had to have a real heavy attitude. Any problem in the ring, I think you would do in the building, or you would do you wouldn't stretch it out and carry it into ribs or anything else. And so the ring was business. So any problem at the ring would be you go face to face and work it out that way, rather than playing games.
Do you remember, and I'm not specifically saying Warrior, but obviously he bludgeoned quite a few of the enhancement talent as well. I spoke to Nikita Koloff the other day, and I said enhancement talent, and he just went, "Dude, they're jobbers." It's like, don't use the new vernacular on me, the jobbers. But anyway, so the enhancement talent / jobbers. What would happen if one of them refused to wrestle a certain person? Would they just be sent home and never used again, or?
Yeah, that's all. Well, probably eventually they get might get used again, but.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bobby Heenan. What was I know what his opinion was. What was Bobby Heenan's opinion of Ultimate Warrior?
Always his neck and stuff. Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, well, he didn't like that. He's. So I've been with Bruiser and Billy Robinson and all those guys. I don't need any of this. And he was no Bruiser or Robinson. He was just a madman. And so you can understand either way. But I'm sure Bobby wouldn't have been happy with it. But in either way, it was. He wasn't happy. Wasn't pleased.
Did you ever you didn't really get to know Jim too much on a personal level then, I take it? I mean, did you ever hang out in bars or gyms or anything with him?
Pretty well, yeah. Gyms, we tried. He was, like I said, he used to hang with the Bulldog, the Bulldogs. I don't know, I guess they liked having crazy people around. He was with the Dynamite. And I remember when somebody gave Dynamite a hit of speed or something one night, and Brett would never. He knew it, the Dynamite. EW Ultimate. I like it. Let's go with it. The night he got the Ultimate Warrior moniker, became the Ultimate Warrior. Like when I became Magnificent Muraco or anything like that, it was all as official. And Dynamite, hey, Ultimate Warrior, UW, I love it. Let's go with it. I love it. Right, Ultimate Warrior, that's it. And then Brett was see, Tommy, see, that's why I refuse. Yeah, he was. I was around. I made trips with him, and spoke with him often. He wasn't a bad guy. I guess he hadn't gotten inside his head so much at the time. And this was later when the majority of the time he's in the territory, he traveled with his wife, the lady that was on the dark side. He was with her. He traveled with her the majority of the time, and they were. But we go out to eat, and I would be same hotels, same restaurants and stuff, and same gyms. We out to the gyms, and he was at first. I guess he was pretty standoffish by himself, and then I'm sure he kind of fell in. I'm Jimmy Powers, and he became good friends, and probably trained together. Most of the time, he worked out by himself.
Yeah, you you travelled, I believe, with Owen Hart for a period as well, which I always thought was a bit of a conflict of characters.
Could be, but Owen Hart he was a melon. He could kind of roll with. He could kind of roll with anything, and he probably he was probably the best guy to be around. He kept Warrior out of his own head, because Owen was always coming up with different kind of crap to pulling somebody or different things. He was. I only met him a couple times, and spent time in the gym one time at one of the. I think it was a Hall of Fame induction or something like that. I think it was Fuji. He was a good kid, sharp, and I've seen his work and listened to his stuff. He was, the wrestling world was really robbed of a spectacular talent when he fell from the rafters.
Going back to Ultimate Warrior, and I know the answer to this already, and you've talked to me about it already, but I've got to ask you. Heck of a driver, I believe, Warrior.
I guess when he wanted to be. We came from the airport in Tallahassee one time. I don't know what he was trying to prove. He'd slam on the gas and slam on the brakes. Turned, I said, got to the hotel and worked out stuff, and then they were going. The building was only 4 or 5 blocks away. I said, I'll walk. That's cool. And I could hear him. As they're driving, goes, oh man, it was on FSU campus somewhere, I think, Florida State University. Oh God.
Did you ever witness his coffee addiction? Because I've heard he's got a bit of, like Savage, I believe, had a coffee addiction as well. Did you ever see him just like absolutely powering him down?
After I left, probably got it from Dynamite. Dynamite, it was one with the coffee all the time. So it probably came with the Dynamite. So I was only there. Maybe his first. When did he start in the WWF?
Warrior was 87, mid 87, I think.
Yeah, 87. So he was later, 88 when I was finished up there.
Do you reckon he? Well, this is probably after you left, really, but I'll ask anyway. Did he have too much of a problem splitting his in-ring character from his life, basically? Was he morphing into the Ultimate Warrior backstage when you were there, or was that something that happened maybe 1990 and beyond?
Obviously, he did. I guess when you see him later, all you warriors out there, and that he just became embroiled with his own persona, and around the boys it wouldn't float. It was not working, until like I said, I don't know what happened after the 88, 90, and went into the 90s when the clique and everybody, different people were taking, and it was more of a behind the scenes operation, backstabbing and stuff like that going on, or the power plays behind the scenes with Vince and with the office that people got moved around. Previously to that, it wasn't quite that way. You had Hogan back there, and Hulk was running, well, naturally so, because he was basically carrying the company. Well, because they'd gone on national/international, he was basically carrying the company, his trademark and stuff. So and that's where he and Vince had their problems, obviously. But those, like I said, I had a foot in each generation. I had kind of both. I was lucky to experience the WrestleManias and the change and the stuff, and then, but I saw it grew faster after I was gone.
Going to the fans, so this is the A&E documentary I'm referring to. It mentions that Ultimate Warrior had to record a video apology to a fan that he snubbed. I think it was like a Make-A-Wish fan that he snubbed and refused to meet. So when did the Make-A-Wish kids start coming into the WWF? Was this during your tenure or afterwards?
Well, there were always guys that traveled around, that would stop, and they would make requests and make that people would respond to. Well, naturally, I was a heel up until the end there, so I didn't get a lot of. I would at times I did stop by hospitals and stuff, but nobody, it wasn't it wasn't a big deal that I was there, because they want their heroes, they want their guys to cheer for. The Hulks and the Cenas and those guys. I guess Cena's got an all-time record for appearances for Make-A-Wish and stuff, and he keeps growing. So just like that. It's it wasn't. It was there, but it wasn't as predominant. And honestly, there wasn't really much time to do. And they would come to the arena. They would be sponsored to the arena stuff, and guys would go out and shake hands and give them a hug or something, and pay attention to them. But it wasn't as organized as it is now back then.
When you were in the WWF, even as a bad guy and a good guy, were there always people at the arenas, and maybe in other territories as well? You tell me. Men, women, children, always asking for autographs before and after the shows, like near your cars and stuff. Do you remember that? Getting worse, I suppose, to use a word. You know what I mean? More busy, more people trying to get your autographs when you're in the WWF. And as a bad guy, did you ever oblige, or were you just never ever obliging?
Yeah, I signed. You usually, sometimes, some guys just get, you're caught in a long, you got a parking ticket, you couldn't get a parking space. Your wife's giving you a headache, you don't feel well, no, not now, no autographs, But normally, you're a person, you're a human being, and you're subject to all type of emotions. Some guys just go out, I'm going to go sign autographs, well, good on you, But, you're not always, you're not always wired, you're not always wired into going, into thinking about that. Then with your own personal, your own personal challenges throughout the day, sometimes it's an inconvenience, or they may be smart, but depends. Sometimes the guy's a wise guy, often, a smart guy too, blow off. Just depends.
Weirdest thing you've ever signed?
Oh God, I don't know. Weirdest thing I ever signed. I guess people arms or something. I'm sure casts and stuff. I can't offhand. You kind of catch me. I'm sure there's been a couple weird ones, but it doesn't register right now. Sorry.
Nothing that spring to mind then.
No,
right. No tits or anything like that. To say sign
no bare boobs or anything like that. Yeah,
they'd be memorable if nothing else. I'll ask you this then: Parts Unknown. When was the first time Parts Unknown was used that you know of?
Boy, before I got in the business, I guess just about every masked man was from Parts Unknown. I was gonna run for mayor there, but I couldn't find my way home. No, it was just parts unknown. The mystery executioner from Parts Unknown. He was a famous. When I was in Hawaii, growing up, he was the famous masked man who would come through here. Vic Christie, Lord Tallyho Blues' good buddy. He was from Parts Unknown, via East Coast to Los Angeles, and then he'd come to Hawaii 5-6 months out of the year.
So who was he again? Christie. Who did you say?
Yeah, Vic Christie.
Vic Christie. I've never heard of him before. Did he do anything else apart from the execution?
Yeah, he's an old timer, double old time. He was an old timer when Blair's was breaking in. He was. It's funny. Men go around and you see men as they go. And when Vic died, I think a good part of Tally Ho, Blair's died because he was like a mentor. He was a close friend. He was the guy that he and his brother took over the stuntman operation in Hollywood, out of Jules Strongbow and Eileen Eaton's husband and stuff were running before Eileen Eaton took over Los Angeles and then on to Mike LaBelle. They started the stuntman with the stunt, and they're movie stars and stuff. And they're always playing ribs on movie stars. Just stories that I hear. Then dating the starlets and all kinds of, they were always doing stuff. And then Gene LaBelle followed in the suit in their footsteps because of Eileen Eaton and the Hollywood booking office out of Olympic Auditorium there.
Yeah.
So it was just, the wrestling had a strong foothold in the stunt market for quite a while.
So when was Vic Christie active then? Sort of the 30s, 40s?
Yeah, probably 50s, early 50s, 40s, maybe 50s and 60s. Well, in Hawaii. Yeah, he finished up here. I think he was pretty much done by the 70s because I was already gone, graduated. Yeah, so in the early 60s, he was around, and to get aside from Tally Ho Blues, he started Curtis Iauke, the bull, and Curtis was, 360 pounds, just a rugged, beat the hell out of everybody. And Vic and Tally Ho, you'd always watch, and when Curtis was wrestling Vic would just beat the hell out of him, throw him all over them. Curtis is doing a favor for Tally. He was just, he was making him look good. That's how the wrestling business is. He was making him look good because he was Tally Ho's buddy. He was Tally Ho's main man. So Curtis would fly for him, like me with Bobo Brazil.
Oh, I didn't know you wrestled Bobo. Oh, you've got to give us some Bobo stories, surely.
Oh, I don't have many. I just the times I did, I just put my wings on. Growing up. He and Carpentier were my two favorites, and I just And I got a chance to work with him in Florida, and then somebody mentioned to me yesterday that I worked with him in San Francisco for Anton Leone when they were running an outlaw promotion there, and the guy said, "Boy, Bobo must have been on 65, and he's throwing you all over the place." I said, "Well, yeah, that's Bobo, man. He was my hero forever." So yeah, I could see, it's one of those things. He didn't have to do nothing, just to go and boom.
Right, I'll tell you what, we're going to move on from Bobo. I'd love some more Bobo stories, but if you don't know too many, well, I'll move on then. And one thing I was going to ask, the Ultimate Warriors promos, so really famous. I'll get onto them in a minute, but can you tell me on, and you'll probably know from the before generation, after generation, the WWF generation almost, what were the promos like as far as the schedule throughout the day? How many would you have to do? What cities would you direct them to?
When I first started, we had every 3 weeks, Allentown on a Tuesday, Hamburg on a Wednesday. And we get there, say around 11 o'clock, lunchtime. and the truck, the camera would all already be running, and Vince would be doing intros for this Saturday in Philadelphia, this Saturday in Allen, this Friday in Pittsburgh, and he'd be doing, and then you'd come and they'd have a number of cards, any number of as many as they could get through until the wrestling started at 7 o'clock, so they'd break at 6. So all the wrestling cards, and this was pretty much at the time just in the East Coast area, from Maine to Washington D.C., as far west as Pittsburgh. So, and all the cities, the Scrantons and the Altoonas and the Elizabeths, and all the cities in between, and not to mention the big Bostons and Washington D.C. and Baltimore's and Philadelphia's and New Haven's and those big markets like that pretty much Madison Square Garden that occupied the weekends. But you'd have different TV inserts to all these other little areas, like Scranton PV, or all these areas that have their own television network running and their own WWE, WWF programs coming on their market. So you would personalize. I'm fighting you Tuesday night, Scranton, 8 o'clock in a cage at I think it was the CYO Hall or something like that. Be there, and that's that was I run anywhere. Well, sometimes as short as 30, but from a minute to like the 202, a minute to 2 minutes, and you would have to get in. Like I said, I'm fighting you in a cage in Scranton on August 10th at 8 p.m. at the CYO, and then get your own personality, try and slip your own personality in there. After all that, all the girls be lined up there dying to see me and everything else, as I come in on a stretcher. You're trying to sell your own personality as well as that within that minute period. So it was, and now they're going to the 10, 20-minute runs, yeah.
Did you ever have did someone have a board under the camera saying Tuesday, 21st, Scranton, Pennsylvania, or did you just have to remember 30 different places one after another?
Howard Finkel put up a little white piece of paper, 8 by 10, tape it to the camera, or you have it, or Vince would have maybe 2 or 3 copies going around. Howard had one, the TV camera had one, and Vince had one. Maybe not even that, maybe Howard was feeding, but you look at it, okay. And you remember, if we did something 2 or 3 weeks ago in Scranton, to come back in this cage, to come back in this type of match, and then I remember last time, you cheated and you did me wrong. So that's why I'm coming back to get you in the cage, whatever the case may be.
Do you remember, so when WWF goes national, so we're talking, let's say a few years on, 86, 87, 88, and you're doing all these interviews, was there one town, there wasn't a major market like New York or Chicago or wherever, where you were directed to really go crazy and promote? So let's say the Cape Cod Melody tent really hit that hard. Was there one odd town that really seemed to have a lot of attention?
Not to my recollection. I don't think so. Vince, when we picked up Vince Cape Cod, because that used to be that was Vince's town, Vince Jr. That was his hometown, his park. Now he's Stanford, but I think back in those days, Cape Cod was where he lived.
Yeah, didn't he have that arena before he had the WWF? Was that his first project, I think? Or am I going crazy?
I believe so, yeah. I think he had a hockey. I heard he had a semi-pro hockey team or something there. Not certain, but rumor has it.
Do you remember Warrior's promo specifically? And did you ever see him practicing the weird things that he would say, in the locker room or just in a corner, sort of mumbling to himself?
No, like I said, it was early, and he was pretty much firing straight from the hip, at the time. The Warriors, the Warrior fan, and this and that, and the Warrior, when the Warrior comes after you, you're going to... So it's pretty much straight shot. I remember when I got back to Hawaii and seeing some of his promos that they'd gone pretty deep. He was one time he had the mask, Papa Shango, and he had blood coming out of a mask or I don't know, it was blood or ink or something coming out
Yeah.
of his mask. And
I think it was squid ink. It just.
Yeah. No, one time he actually had a hose or something shooting stuff, a little tube or something shooting that I was watching on TV, and I was, whoa, it's getting, he's out there, but yeah, he had creative control. You don't just do that. I mean, you don't just get on a promo and start having blood running out of your mask. If you're not in sync with the camera and the office and the production crew and everybody else, it's just. So he had creative input.
Do you remember the A&E documentary? And there's a brief bit where you're in it, and Ultimate Warrior's, I don't know, chanting to the heavens or whatever, and you're in the background and you can't stop laughing. Davey Boy Smith's in the foreground; he can't stop laughing, and I think there's a Junkyard Dog who's probably just looking out in the corner somewhere. Did you notice yourself on like 5 seconds of that documentary?
Now, what was he talking about?
It was the A&E documentary. You were on it for like 5 seconds in the background.
Oh, I got to look at it again.
It's funny. You've got the biggest smile on your face because you probably just listen to this dude and going, "Oh my God."
Yeah, he could do you listen to it. It wasn't your standard, wasn't your standard stuff. He was got, but wrestling was changing, and it was everything was on the managers were almost gone except for Bobby Heenan and DiBiase. I think the managers were gone, and Fuji, of course. But there were no longer any managers, just a girl, Sherry and Elizabeth, the different types. So all those, the Wizard and Lou and Blassie and all those, that type of manager had gone, and everybody else was like a hands-on in the arena manager, that traveled with their charges.
Yeah. I'll tell you what then, the AD documentary, and in fact both documentaries, go on and on and on about steroids and Ultimate Warrior. They're fairly synonymous with each other, of course, but this was in the 80s WWF. Practically everyone was doing steroids, even like Brett, who didn't look like he was doing steroids. Even Honky Tonk Man was apparently doing steroids at one point. Who gets amazingly, you wouldn't know it to look at him, but who, in your opinion, is the person to either blame or credit for bringing the steroid look into wrestling? And when was the first time that you heard maybe steroids being talked about openly?
Oh, one guy. Only one, the man. Superstar. Too what? Too sweet to be sour, too something to be too pretty to be shitty. I don't know. Superstar, yeah. Superstar. He was the man, yeah. He was up. He was a power lifter, semi-pro Canadian football up in Calgary when he first started. I guess he started with Stu up there, Wayne Coleman, and then I remember working out of that old original Gold's Gym on the street there in Venice. The Arnold coming into the shower going, Billy Graham, no good, 100% weight, 100% effort. Billy Graham, he killing you. And that was best superstar, boy. He was bad. He was a bad dude, and his paper, his arms, he had like rice paper. His skin was like rice, he was just jacked.
But there's quite a few people who really ripped before then. I mean, I'm sure. I seem to remember Rocky Johnson. He's starting 64 or something like that, and he was absolutely ripped. And he was one of the few people. Who Superstar and Rocky Johnson. Do you remember just having awesome bodies back in the old days?
Well, Rocky always had the body. Rocky's always trained, always been. And then when he got with Atlas, he was just he got to be a maniac training. You could see Rocky had a good, well, aside from the legs, Rocky had the V. He had the shoulders that were able to carry, the great. And you look at some of the pictures with him and Tony, he'd really cut the abs down, and they were really training. Tony, on the other hand, is like your black basketball player with narrow shoulders, not a big. Hey, you rat! Just stole a bone out of the garbage can.
Right, that's not your wife. For people not seeing this.
No, another dog. But Tony was narrow shouldered. Doesn't have the naturally wide, that V shape that like Rocky had. But Tony has so much muscle and slapped on so many. He's so huge. It's a difference because you wouldn't watch Tony do that most muscular pose, and he almost disappears. It's because his shoulders are so, and all you have is bowling balls for deltoids and the neck, but the width isn't there with Rocky. And I remember Rocky from way back, San Francisco, everything, diet, training, supplements, everything. He was always into the gym.
Yeah. Do you remember Rocky and Tony always, always bickering back and forth? Because from all reports I've heard from both guys, they couldn't stand each other, and they were tag team champions for the better part of a year.
Yeah, it's a shame. They could have done a lot of business together. But yeah, aside from being bodybuilders and in competition, I guess it just didn't work. It's just I don't know why. I know obviously said Rocky would leave Tony and not be able to get to the buildings, and I'm sure Tony would might be driving Rocky nuts and was always squealing on Rocky and stuff like that. But I was, unfortunately, I was gone. I was also gone when that happened. Everybody kind of, we kind of looked at it, put him together as a tag team, assumed that there'd be friction there in the bunch, and it turned out to be true.
All right, so going back on Ultimate Warrior then, and I've got to ask a couple more Ultimate Warrior questions. And one of them is Ultimate Warrior versus Andre the Giant. Were you ever privy to these 1 minute, 5 second main events where the whole crowd would just lose their mind booing at the end of it?
No, I wasn't. This is after Pontiac Silverdome. I guess Andre just didn't want to be there, so he just was just getting in and getting out. It was you got to realize how bad his back and his legs and stuff were by that time, and just getting to the ring and to and from the ring were just chores for him. So that just his loyalty to the McMahons and McMahon stuff, I think is what got him out there. He certainly didn't need the money.
Do you think, so this is, I'll leave Andre then. Both documentaries also seem to mention about Ultimate Warrior, that there was almost like a cult of personality with Vince McMahon, where Ultimate Warrior really saw Vince as a father figure. Do you know anyone else in the locker room who maybe overly cared what Vince McMahon thought about them on a personal basis?
Not up until that point, no. The office was the office, and the talent was the talent. You have to realize back in those days, pre-Vince McMahon, it was, the other territories and stuff with a lot of the promoters. It was, pretty adversarial. The promoters were, trying to keep you down, and you were trying, guys were, older guys and more seasoned guys were trying to, gain more leverage or money or whatever it was, input into the programming and stuff. So there was always, there was always animosity between. When I was there wasn't a Shawn Michaels or Warrior or anybody, closest thing to that might be Piper, who would have meetings with Vince and arrange his scheduling and stuff, and arrange his programs. and stuff, like that. Because he had the pit, and he was a fragile character that, if he lost matches, it would lose a lot of credibility as far as what he was trying to present. So he had to protect himself, and then he was always 2-3 steps ahead and moving. Always thinking and growing.
1991. So obviously you saw both documentaries. I keep mentioning it. He writes a letter to Vince McMahon basically saying he deserves as much pay as Hulk Hogan does and all the other perks that go with it, and then says if he doesn't get that, he will refuse to turn up for SummerSlam 1991. So eventually McMahon says, yeah, I'll give it you, and then fires him straight afterwards. Have you ever refused to partake in a match or refused to lose a match under any circumstances?
I've left before my time, yeah, a couple times. My dad died in San Francisco. Well, I was in San Francisco, and we buried him back here in Hawaii, the Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific. And Roy wouldn't kick in on any of the plane fare, and I realized it's personal, but he was an obstinate sort. And then Ole Anderson and I, Ole Anderson was such a disrespectful guy. But, and I personally would just get homesick or just sick of being in just not being in Hawaii and not being in the ocean, not being able to surf. And I would, at times I'd just bail.
With Ole Anderson, did you were you actually wrestling him, or was he just booking you at the time, and then you just didn't like him and said, "Well, I'm not losing to you. See you later."
He was at the times I was wrestling him babyface, and then and he was booking he was booking Charlotte and Atlanta for when Barnett. I don't know how much of Charlotte he had, but I know he was in Charlotte. They had a TV with a great big picture of Mulligan on the TV. I guess Mulligan had knocked him out 2 or 3 times. So he just had a blackjack and just that poster of him covering the whole face of the TV. But he was making big money. He was making as much money or more money than the champions at the time. Because he was getting reportedly, I don't know, but $250,000 to book Georgia for Barnett, and then plus he was booking himself in all the main events and stuff. He was world tag team champions, or he was in all the angles.
So you're saying a booker booked himself to be in the main event and get the most money? I do not believe it.
Never happened. Only in rare occasions.
So I'll do a couple more with Ultimate Warrior, and then we'll close down the podcast. So did you ever meet Jim after wrestling, like at conventions or signings or anything?
I did. I saw him at one convention. I think the last one I did in New Jersey, where he was doing. I didn't listen to the speech where he was talking about gays and all the other stuff he did in the thing. But I saw him, and I was going up, and he was going away from his meeting. I said, "Hey, boy, what's up?" And he stopped and he spoke. We talked for a few minutes, and back and forth. And I went, and the guy James, who was running the autograph. Well, one of the guys was running the autograph set, the convention there. He says, "Wow, he must like you." He normally doesn't talk to people. I don't know. It's just he was courteous and spoke. But I heard that he wasn't a big fan of the boys or anything, which probably stands to reason. After a while, he was so he was just he wasn't. They didn't look at him like one of the boys. He actually wasn't, but he was this Marvel cartoon character. that everybody worked around. I said, you paid to see what you paid. You got what you paid to see. A muscled up guy. I said earlier at the beginning that came running in the ring, gave guys a bunch of stiff clotheslines, shook through them, and then ran back out to parts unknown. And if you thought anything else was going to happen out of that, you're badly mistaken, because that's what he was, and that's what you got. You had an entire card to back him up to get time, and you had Killer Bees and Bulldogs and Junkyards and Harley Race and Terry Funk and Don Muraco and all these guys to fill in time and to fill in wrestling, to fill in everything else. So what you got is the ultimate, this nut that came running back and forth, just exploding out of the gates like a wild bull, So if you're disappointed with what you saw and expected him to be, some Dory Funk Jr. or somebody like that, you're going to the wrong place. What you're buying the ticket for is the Ultimate Warrior. Warrior.
Well, I tell you what, that got him into the Hall of Fame in, I think, 2014. I hope I'm not just making that year up in my head. I think it was 2014 anyway. But he insisted that Linda McMahon induct him. What do you remember of Linda McMahon when you were working there? What roles did she play? And did you see her that often? And how much did you see her and what roles did she have?
She was head of the legal department and head of the legal department, and hadn't really actively entered into the company as such. And I saw her in subsequent years, making appearances on the Raw or whatever it was, and making different before Stephanie started moving in as the head lady. She made a couple, but she wasn't. But I met her a couple times. Was always a nice, engaging lady. Didn't spit on you because you were working for her husband or anything. She got me out of a couple scrapes, a couple different places with fans and stuff that attacked me, and I protected myself, and I was in the wrong. So yeah, she's a good cat.
Yeah. Did she pull your chestnuts out of the fire, so to speak? Because you told me once that I think it was in WWF, someone hit you and then you hit them back, and it ended up being a lawsuit out of it. Was she the one to deal with that?
Yeah. She took care of those things. I'm sure she had a lot more serious things to do on her plate, but one of the things, I only had a couple, one or two, maybe three run-ins that amounted to anything at all. They were really nothing, but they just mountain out of a molehill.
Right, okay then. Well, I'll ask you one more question about Ultimate Warrior, and then we're going to finish on the Mr. Fuji rib of the week.
Okay.
That I forgot to prompt you before we started this podcast, so hopefully you've got one, or else this is going to be a really disappointing ending to the show. So I'll just ask this: Ultimate Warrior's legacy. You've already really explained what Ultimate Warrior's legacy is, I suppose. Any other stories about the Warrior that just stick out in your mind? Anything you want to sort of mention and get out there, or any other opinions of the documentaries that you saw?
Just that they were really joyless. There was no celebration and no. I hope he had a happier. Happier. I'm sure he did. Going along, like I said, like Macho Man, after he got divorced, he was running up hundreds of dollar tabs at strip bars and stuff. You never saw him even out of the room before he was like that. So and then, I hope that he had had a good life. He reached the Ultimate Warrior. He had ultimate success. He was the star of the company for however long he was there, and I'm sure with his head spinning with the Warrior stuff, that probably a clear thinking Hulk or somebody else would be easy to displace him. And I think that was the time when Stone Cold and The Rock and Shawn Michaels and stuff were getting ready to come in on the scene. So they were they were bringing, a whole another level of talent. I think Triple H was already there, and he slaughtered Triple H in one match. But that they were just it was just coming of a new era, and when those Rock and Stone Cold and HBK and all those guys, kind of moved in with the working and the talking and the charisma and everything else, his world got smaller.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that he was always playing pro wrestler rather than actually being a pro wrestler and really learning the craft?
Could be. He was a bodybuilder, above and beyond. I think he probably wanted to go somewhere in the bodybuilding field, which he made a lot more money as a wrestler. But it's on to Fuji. Did I tell the Tommy? Did I tell the Tommy Sands story?
No. Mr. Fuji Rib of the Week. I need to have like a jingle or something. But no, Mr. Fuji Rib of the Week. Go ahead.
Tommy Sands was an old time. He was a young guy, but he was an old, with like Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon in that period. The beach blanket, beach surf movies and beach bum movies and stuff like that in the early '60s. The surfing movies when the first surf movie. So Frankie Avalon, he married Frank Sinatra's daughter, and arranged Hollywood marriage. Set up. I don't know what her persuasion was, but he married Nancy Sinatra for a couple years after that. She got the song "The Boots Are Walking" and stuff like that. They were married for a couple years. I know no children as far as I know, and divorced. But but Frank was still taking care of him, so it was probably pretty amicable. So. He came to Hawaii. He had some gigs in Hawaii to do, and he was a 145-pound guy, not a big man, never worked out, but he was at a run in Hawaii where he was performing at a few different places. So Don Ho, back in the day, was running pretty much running the protection and what was going on the island. So obviously Frank made a call to Don that, hey, take care of my ex-son-in-law. He's a good kid, yada, yada, so on and so forth. And just make sure, nothing, he doesn't run afoul of, he get in trouble. So Don went down to one of his captains, the captain to his lieutenant. And one of the guys was Fuji's best friend, who Fuji used to run with. And so somehow, some way, Fuji ended up with Tommy Sands, taking him around, because Fuji always had the big Cadillac, the big Lincoln, always. It's just in the 60s. He loved big cars, always kept them immaculate, clean. So he ended up taking, Tommy Sands around the island, out, to meals and nightclubs or wherever they went. They had, free reign, blank check. Don was picking up the tab, and they're going out. So anyway, Dean's gym, Dean Higuchi, Dean Ho. Dean's gym was in Waikiki, and Tommy saw Fuji. Fuji loved to rib, so Fuji brings poor old Tommy down to the gym, and he takes him through every single. And if you never worked out before, and if you've never trained and you never, you're not a physical person, even a soccer player, you have to run. Your legs are sore, or what, if you're not athletic, whatever you do. So Fuji brought him into the gym, and he did everything: squats, and biceps, and bench press. So every muscle group on his body the next 2 or 3 days would just be torture. And he finished it off with the isometric neck work, and the guy. He'd never worked out before a day in his life, and you could tell. And he just had this guy, and he's spotting him, lifting the weights up and having him do more. Oh, you're doing great, doing great. Oh man! After that, the poor guy, he was just having a body cast. He just couldn't move. It was just crippled. And that was, that was Fuji having a good time. I was a young kid. I was young. I was in school and watching this stuff, but still, I remember, everybody, you knew what was going on. He wasn't the first. He wasn't the first guy Fuji'd run to the gym, for a workout. And when they finish it with the isometric neck workout, then you got you doing neck workout. That boy, the hook is in.
Did he ever get you with the gym thing?
No, I was training. I was in there. I knew him up there. I was a member of the gym.
Right, so that is Mr. Fuji's story of the week then, and I'll tell you what, we'll close out the podcast with this. With my outro is how I'm going to close it. God, I'm really, really off my... Not that I was ever on my game, but I'm really off my game today. So anyway, I'll thank you very much for watching. This was the Ultimate Warrior episode with Don Muraco. Thank you very much. Podcast... on the video version of it on YouTube at Don Muraco Magnificent Podcast, and Twitter on Don Muraco Pod. If you'd like to follow us, please do. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and thank you, Don, for sharing more stories. Cheers. We'll see you next week.
Well, it's been fun.